Hello and welcome to Control Alt WoW AprilPvd. Today is Wednesday, July 8th, 2026, and this is episode 871, Altaholics Gone Wild. This podcast is about AprilPvd living her best life in retirement, living single, sober, and small, and a lot about playing VR. Mostly I'm playing, and actually this week all I've been playing is No Man's Sky. And I've been playing it so much with my alt, and we're going to listen to what I have been doing in VR. It's crazy dealing with all my alts, and I hope you enjoy it. And of course, spoiler warning, we will be talking about the expedition. So if you haven't done the expedition, I suggest you wait and then come back and listen to this podcast. So we're back for another week of AprilPvd, No Man's Sky, virtual reality. Of course, I'm doing a lot of different things and I'm covering a lot of stuff. I want to talk about some of the things I do, and I'm going to do this at the end of this episode, that helps me with my retirement. But I also want to bring up the fact that last week I talked a lot about duping. I encountered another YouTuber and he expressed some strong opinions about what he calls exploits in No Man's Sky. He may be right. He feels that there shouldn't be any duping at all. And in the last week, I was very much into duping. He also thinks that the runaway mole should not respawn so quickly. I think what appeals to me, and I think other people about the No Man's Sky, is the flexibility, and that if you want to, you can avoid the hard grind. I imagine some people who work 40 hours a week do not want to have to come home and work in the game. They just want to play. They don't want to do more work. But at the same time, I can also appreciate the fact that the game may be more challenging if we couldn't dupe. My feelings personally is that I have already gone through the game and I've played, and now I just want to have fun and try things that I wouldn't have been able to try. And of course, there's always creative mode, which I could turn on, which would do practically the same thing. Although I don't think you can do creative mode. Can you do creative mode in the expedition? I'll have to check that out. Does anybody know? Maybe I'm just trying to justify my actions. Would I still play if they turned off all the exploits? Yes, I would. And I would stop duping. And it would be okay. What do you think about duping? All right, so I didn't get to play much on Tuesday because I was doing a lot of editing, and I'm also trying to organize my hard drive because I save a lot of game data or game videos. Some of it's for the video I put out on YouTube that is along with this, podcast. If you're just listening to it on a podcast, there is a video that accompanies it. I usually try to include the gameplay that I'm talking about. So I spent a lot of time Tuesday doing that. On Wednesday, though, like I had talked about in the last week's episode, I was looking for some suspicious tech packets for Sebastian. And as I keep saying, he's going to be he started a fresh save and he's going to keep this save. This is going to be his main save. Now, if you don't know what suspicious packets are, they are something that you can get from the vendors on pirate stations. They're handy for a few reasons. One reason is that they have a variety of extra tech, or in the case of the arms, powerful modules. In some cases, you have to really look and choose, because sometimes they're just as good, or sometimes they can be worse than an S-class tech module that you can get at the space station. But the beauty of the suspicious packets is that they stack in, I think, up to 40 or 30. Oh, 50. They stack up to 50, and you can bring them over from your main save into the expedition. And if it's an expedition where there is someone that you can sell things to, then you can sell them for nanites. If there was one expedition where there was only abandoned stations, and that wouldn't count. And in that case, you would bring over runaway mold or tainted metal to refine for nanites. So, anyways, uh, Sebastian had a bunch, but they were all arms, and he hooked up with AprilPvd, and he got some from her to upgrade his Sentinel ship. And of course, he did end up doing some duping to get more of those. But he also did a lot of, he did on on Wednesday, he did a lot of the missions. There are the mission that he did included one that was to find a node. How you have to either give it some ferrite, or you have to give it overload it with a microprocessor or some silicate powder. And when he did that, it was the one he found was actually a base computer, just a random base computer out there. And it was interesting because it was on a nice flat area. It looked like a very buildable place, and he was able to claim it. And it was interesting because somebody had mentioned the rarity of these base stations unclaimed. There's supposed to be some kind of leftover relic, and I'm wondering if it's something to do with the expedition and uh, the way they set it up, maybe putting us in areas with legacy items still existed. So on Thursday, I worked out in VR as usual, and it was pretty good. I actually got a 948 hit streak in the boxing workout, which is 16 minutes of nonstop cardio and a whole bunch of sweat. Whenever I get that streak, it always makes me feel good and releases a lot of endorphins. The whole workout was good. I was riding the elliptical through this map called Babylon, and it's like this old time city, and it's really a lot of fun, and it was distracting. At the same time, I was listening to Hyperion on Audible, which is a really weird science fiction book. And I just love the whole VR workout, and I feel like it really adds to my single, sober, and living small lifestyle. Thursday afternoon, I got around to playing No Man's Sky, and earlier in the day, I saw a video by Captain Steve, and I put a link in the show notes. He's a YouTuber, and he shared some glyphs to a planet that he wanted people to build bases on. Of course, Sebastian is the only one that has all the portal glyphs, so I had him go to the planet from the portal, and then AprilPvd joined him and set up a base there. It was fun to be building again, and I tried some new things that I had learned from visiting other bases. So I had AprilPvd come in, join Sebastian's game. Then she put down a base, and then I swapped out AprilPvd into VR, and she started building. Well, the first thing she had to do was to put down one of those construction computers, which I had never really used before because I was always going to the anomaly. And of course, if you follow the whole quest line in the beginning, you get all the base parts and you get all the new stuff. But I wanted to do this right away. One thing she had to contend with was that this particular planet does have those anomalies where you get floated into the air. But I did do some more duping. She duped some salvage data so that she could buy the blueprints to build this particular structure. And I had fun building this structure. I had fun making it a little bit different. And like I said, using some of the things I had seen other people do, which was making like a courtyard in the middle with a balcony around the outside. I didn't make a big base. I just made it big enough for me to put in a portal and put down some batteries and stuff. And my whole idea was that I'm going to bring in Sebastian, Aprillian, and April to make their homes nearby. On Friday, I multi-boxed with Sebastian in VR and AprilPvd on the flat screen. She logged in to her home on that planet, on Captain Steve's planet, and then Sebastian logged in and teleported to his base, which was really near her base. So he went over to AprilPvd's base. She traded him some salvage data because she had duped a bunch the day before. And he used her construction computer to get the blueprints for a different kind of base. I wanted those to be different from each other. So he brought the blue salvage blueprints where you kind of looks like a rough robotic cyberpunk kind of place, and he purchased all the plans for that. And then he went not too far from hers, right on the beach, a few units over from her place, which was nice. And he built a home there. And then he logged off AprilPvd, or I logged off AprilPvd, and then I logged in Aprillian, and she came in and put a base down. And then I did the same thing with April. And then Aprillian logged in and started working on her base, and she made a little underwater base. So, and not too far from their base. But one of the things that happened is Aprillian could still see Sebastian's base, but she couldn't see AprilPvd's base. It'll be interesting when Captain Steve is on again and he logs in to see the bases, and I wanted to see if he could see my base. I uploaded all the bases, all 3 bases, so that, it would work out. But I'm having fun building again, and then I did do some missions as well. I thought it would be cute if she had an underwater base, but she had to go to the anomaly to get the blueprints for the underwater stuff. She could not get that from the construction terminal. In the meantime, I did do all the missions on both Aprillian and Sebastian. Also, when Aprillian got back to her freighter, one of her frigates was damaged and she had to go and do repairs. And I really like that part. I like the way they make all the ships different and it feels like you're actually going onto your ship and repairing it, or your frigate and repairing it. So that was a really lot of fun. And I am enjoying being a part of this whole Captain Steve thing. And yeah, that was really good. On Saturday morning, I did my VR thing and workout. Hope you don't mind if I don't go into all the details. I mean, it's usually the same thing. And I did do my streak again, just like on in No Man's Sky. I'm not gonna tell you about every mission that I do because the missions are, roughly the same, but it's still a lot of fun. And like I said, it's a lot like being back in World of Warcraft and grinding. I remember a time when we had to collect, what was it, copper, some kind of ore, and I had to do this circuit of certain places just to get the same ore over and over again. So it's still fun, and I'm enjoying it. And also on Saturday was the first Saturday of the month, and I do the United Zenithian Alliance run in Zenith, and it's also happened to be the 4th of July, so only a couple of people turned up, so it wasn't a good enough crowd to try to do all the events. So I ended up canceling for that day for Saturday. So we got it every 2 weeks. Hopefully next week or the week after, we'll get a better turnout. And yeah, it was still a good time, and I had fun. And I'm loving VR. The rumors about the Steam frame are still out and about, and I'm anxious to hear about it. Some people say for PC VR it is an upgrade, but it's going to be $1,000. Saturday was a big VR day for me. One of the things that I love about VR is that I get a lot of use out of it. I use it anywhere from 4 to 6 hours a day. And Saturday, I spent my 2 hours doing my VR workout. It was great. And I got another streak in my boxing, which always makes me feel good. It was also the first Saturday of the month, so I had the Zenith cosmetic craze at 4 p.m. But unfortunately, it was also July 4th, which is a holiday. So we only had a couple of people show up, and that it wasn't enough to do all the events. But I did get to talk to one of the guys that shows up every time. His name is Ninja, and he's very nice and helpful. And he's very powerful. He's always good when there's a bunch of low-level people. And I was telling him that I was organizing my hard drives. And it turns out he was doing the same thing, moving stuff so that certain things were on one hard drive and certain things were on the other. If you are playing a lot of games and doing a lot of recording, you're going to get a lot of files. And it's hard to you can't keep them on the computer because the computer just doesn't end up having a lot of space. So he uses multiple hard drives like I do. So what I was basically doing was getting my gaming files on one hard drive and then putting my real life pictures and stuff on another hard drive. And it was nice to talk to him and know that someone else is having the same struggle that I am. Then I logged into Aprillian and I was on her base on Captain Steve's planet. Of course, I wanted to do some things with her underwater base house. For one thing, she needed the ladder to go up and down between the two floors because when I went to the anomaly yesterday, I didn't get everything I needed. So I went and um I went to check the teleporter because I had been watching Captain Steve's video and I wanted to see the other bases that were on his planet. And one of them said that it was a trading post base. So he built a trading post right on top. He built a base right on top of a trading post. He did a really good job. It's a great idea. I think I might try that. I have built a small base on a depot, but I never thought about making one as big as he did. He did a great job on it, and I'm really impressed. Uh, it's a brilliant idea because you have everything you need. You'll have a place to sell stuff, and you have NPCs walking around, so it feels like it's pretty full. So I might do that. Then I went to the anomaly. Oh, I made some uranium for Polo because that was one of the missions that showed up for Brilliant. So I went to back to my base and I did some duping, and then I got enough uranium for me and for Sebastian. So I went back to the anomaly and I summoned uh, Sebastian so that I could give him some of the uranium. But it turned out that I had ran out of time. That when I got there, I was just at the end of the cycle that I turned in. Well, when you get a mission, you can complete it even if the cycle changes because the missions, have an 8-hour cycle. And I had gotten that mission for the supply chain right before the cycle ended. And by the time I had made the extra uranium, summoned Sebastian to come join me, and got to the anomaly to give it to Sebastian, the cycle had turned over. But it was okay. I gave him the uranium, and then I went to do the rest of my missions, and I've gotten really good at fighting off the swarm thingies. I have been using a pulse charge, one of the things you use with your secondary hand, to freeze those things and then shooting them with my weapon on my right hand. And I really like that. It's a really good feeling to do that. They have also fixed a lot of the problems with the graviton coil in VR. So when I was able to get all the parts off of the crashed swarm thing. And then I went back to the anomaly because I found out something from watching another YouTuber. And I feel stupid that all this time I've been playing No Man's Sky that I did not know this. But I went up to the anomaly. I got the blueprints for the ladder and a couple of other things for the underwater build. Then I went back to my place using the teleporter from the anomaly. And then I did some decorating. I'm just trying to spruce up the place because I know that Captain Steve is going to come and look at these bases eventually. And then I I put some small wonder down and used some of the plants that I had discovered and made them into my what do you call it when you can save different creatures and different plants and then use the small wonder machine to show them. And so I just did a little decorating, and then I used the quick menu to get back to the anomaly, because if you use the teleporter at the anomaly, then you don't have to get in a you don't have to get into your vehicle and go into space and summon the anomaly. There's a button on your quick menu that says return to the anomaly, which is just crazy that I had never used that. Aprillian finished her mission, and then I got on Sebastian, who went back to the anomaly to buy some more parts and worked on his home. And then he did the same thing with the small wonders. And then he finished the missions, and that was enough for me. I really enjoyed I know that they say you only get credit for the first 3 missions you do every day. So that's what I'm doing. And I am looking forward to seeing if I see my bases when Captain Steve does his next YouTube video. It's funny when life imitates art, as it were. I was watching Captain Steve, and I know I'm talking a lot about him because I really do enjoy his videos and his style of talking while he's playing. It takes a lot of work to continuously talk while you play. I try to do that in VR, and it's very hard, but he is playing on the flat screen, and I'm sure a lot of what he does is edited. He was playing and doing some of the missions, and it was the one where you have to go to the spot where the four swarm strikers come at you. And it didn't work because a traitor popped up in front of him. And he ended up having to abandon the mission and get it again. And of course, then it takes you to a different galaxy. And that's what happened to me as well. I went ahead and finished the missions on Sebastian, and then I went back to his place and put out a landing pad. I really like the way it looks because it's partially underground or within the surface of the sand dunes beside his house, and it blends in with the area very nicely. And then I logged off of Sebastian and I got on Aprillian, and she did her missions. And when she first logged in, it said the progress for the prismatic core was 93%. For Captain Steve, it had said 92%, and he had said something about, yes, the last time it was at 86, and he thought it would be finished by next week. I think it's going to be finished by tomorrow because when she logged off, it said 94%. But she also did some decorating around her house. She's the one with the underwater home, and she put in a landing pad, which works out really well because it works as a bridge to some land that's beside her house, even though the first two floors are underwater. And she also got a new pet that was underwater. And I love looking out the window of her home because there's a lot of nice fish floating by. And I like the concept of underwater. Now, I did discover that I might be on the wrong save or the wrong, not save. I don't know. I was watching Captain Steve and he said that he changed something. He changed the save. So I'm not sure if the planet that he's doing is supposed to be in the main save or in the expedition. So for Sebastian, it doesn't matter because he's going to keep his save as it is. I'm wondering what's going to happen with the other buildings near him if he doesn't, because they're not going to keep that save. They're going to go back to their main save. So maybe tomorrow I will look at going back to the main save on AprilPvd and then portaling to the same portal thing and see what's going on there. But I just love the whole fact that there's such a community in No Man's Sky. So I figured out that the main planet for Captain Steve was in the regular save. So I flew there after having AprilPvd change back to the primary save. I did the thing I hate the most, which is trying to find the exact coordinates. I logged in on Sebastian at his home in the expedition, which was next door to AprilPvd's, and I noted the coordinates. Once again, I did, and I actually built a base on in AprilPvd's main save at the coordinates to where Sebastian's was. Now, keep in mind, Sebastian's build wasn't there because he's still in the expedition. So this is going to be kind of interesting and weird. And I'm doing this because I love to experiment with the mechanics of the game. So right now, And I know this is going to seem confusing, but this is what I'm doing. AprilPvd is going to have a house on Captain Steve's planet. It's going to be next door to Sebastian's house on the same planet, but Sebastian's house isn't there yet because he's still in the expedition. And if it goes the way I think it's going to go, when he's finished his expedition, then he's going to be popped back into that planet. So I want to see what's going to happen, if it's going to actually work. And it's, it's a crazy thing to try out. So, uh, AprilPvd built a house at the coordinates next to, not at the exact coordinates, because I think that would have been messed it up, but she built near the coordinates that Sebastian had, and I could see Sebastian's, where he is sitting in his house in the expedition on the planet that's both of the same coordinates. I used the glyph that I'd gotten from Captain Steve's YouTube channel. And originally, Sebastian was the one that used the glyphs because he's the one that has the glyphs in the expedition. Nobody else had all the glyphs because of the glitch I did where he kept reloading while being at a grave that Aprillian was standing at, and he was able to just get each of the 16 glyphs. So I then had, AprilPvd use the glyphs because she's the one that has all the glyphs in the main save. And so she was able to build her house on that building spot near Sebastian. So we're going to see what happens later on. I know this is silly, but I have fun exploring these mechanics. And yeah, that's why I love this game. I love games like this because I like the fact that there is what feels like a space that exists in, and it's even more immersive because when I'm in VR, it exists and I can come back to it and see it and interact with it. And it works out so well. So I did that, and then I went back to the expedition with everybody, with AprilPvd, and she went back to the anomaly and went back to her expedition save, a version of her expedition. And then I did the missions on Aprillian and Sebastian. I also did some work on Sebastian's home because he's going to keep it and I want it to be as nice as possible. And because the missions were done, I did the missions and there's not a lot to do. The countdown is actually saying it's at 1E.02 plus something. But if you look at the expedition, it's saying 99%. So there was nothing really to do. And you couldn't even do any more missions at this point. So actually ended up spending a lot of time just sitting around watching the prismatic core on both of my characters. I even went so far as to put up my quest 3 on my punching bob and just kept the video running watching the prismatic core to see if it would tick over while we were watching. And then I finally logged off for a while. Around 7:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Savings Time, I logged in with Sebastian and countermeasures had completed and the prismatic core was done. I had to go and talk to Polo, and he gave me some blueprints to make this lens. And I had all the ingredients, which was corrupted ichor, silver, and gold, 100 each. It was funny because I had hung on to that corrupted ichor because I thought it might come in handy. Because it could be turned into nanites, but of course I didn't need any. So you have to install this lens. And another milestone was completed, and you establish a link to the prismatic core, and you got some stuff for some tech for your ship. But I didn't need it because I already had enough. And then you end up fighting the Hive of Glass. It's a hard fight, but it's doable. It's a little bit harder than fighting the pirate dreadnought because you do have to focus and keep renewing your shields. The little screen comes up when you're fighting the horror, the little bar at the top of the screen that comes up like when you're fighting the big horror things with that tells you how much damage is left on the big mother thing. And it goes down as you hit it, and you have to keep hitting constantly. There's a lot of maneuvering. You have to stay out of reach of the arms, but once you get it, it's really satisfying, and it's a real satisfying feeling. You do have to keep renewing, keep your eye on your shields, and keep re-upping them if they start to go down. There was a YouTuber who went in haphazardly and actually got killed, but he wasn't even paying attention to his shields. He wasn't keeping them charged. But he did learn his lessons afterwards. I won't name him because I don't want to shame him. And he gave some hints about getting tech that might be good for fighting. There's getting some shields for your extra shields for your ship, and getting the ship battery shields because they last longer than the regular shields or the regular like sodium and stuff that you can charge it up. And yeah, it was a really good fight. I felt like I kept out of reach of all the damage, and of course, like I said, keeping my eye on my shields. And when it was over, you get to go talk to Atlas, and he sends you to a completely different planet, which is okay because you can summon your ship and nothing's broken. Your ship is way off. Sebastian claimed all of his rewards, and immediately it said the expedition was over, and this was his main save. I did put down a base, and then I went back to the anomaly and I checked the terminal, and it said the expedition was over and that a new journey would begin soon. And then I realized there was a few things I wish I had done with Sebastian before I finished the expedition on him. I wish I had given him all of the stuff I had left over. I have so much stuff because we were in the expedition for so long. And there's also some ships I wish I had given him. I know I can move the stuff over using the terminal, but it would have been nice to just give him this because this is going to be his main save. And then I got a crazy idea. So on Tuesday, I decided to do something really crazy. You know how I said I wanted to do something differently with Sebastian, that I would have given him stuff that everybody else had in this expedition because he was going to keep that save. And I could have dumped a lot of stuff on because the expedition lasted 3 weeks. All of my characters got so much stuff. So I decided to start April over in the expedition because she is the one after Sebastian that has the smallest save and haven't done as much as the other two. So I started her in the expedition fresh from the new game screen. And I wanted to see how I could speed through the whole beginning of the expedition. I logged into April and got her going. She went through the whole survey thing, and then I had her run to her ship. She was on flat screen. And then I logged into AprilPvd in VR and joined April's save or April's game. And I found her on the planet, landed next to her, and just started giving her everything she needed to complete the opening of the expedition. You know how you had to get all this material and open up the ship so that the ship could take off. and it was like bam, bam. And within 15 minutes, she had everything she needed. She had the chromatic metal and the glass, and then I flew AprilPvd off to find some star bulbs and just gave everything to her. It was very nice. It was very satisfying. And like I said, in 15 minutes, she was ready to go. I also put a bunch of stuff into April's inventory that I knew she might need. And it was less than a half an hour between the time she started and got up into the sky and she was meeting the hive of glass. And then she did the combat with the swarm. And then she went over to talk to Polo. And then she went to the Quicksilver guy and because I wanted her to get the living ship. But I forgot, when you start off at a main save, you have to have 1,400 nanites to buy your living ship. So, but AprilPvd had given her a bunch of suspicious packets, so she was able to sell some of those, get the living ship. And then I switched them. So AprilPvd went to the flat screen, and April was in VR, and she actually gave April her Sentinel ship after AprilPvd went back to her main save and made a copy of it, and then she came back and gave it to her by doing the thing with the, selling it to an NPC. But it was interesting because when April went to buy it back from the NPC, it was a Class C ship and not a Class S. I like the way it looks, so I may upgrade it. Oh, and the other thing I forgot to mention was that April was a royal on her main save when she started the expedition, and she's a royal on this second expedition. So somebody had said that no matter what you answer or do with your character, it's going to stay the same faction. So I may end up trying to find out that planet and let her get her own S-class ship, and then she could use that for her squadron. Which meant I did get April a squadron, but it was just a level C. I'm not worried about it. We can change it later, but it was a place where she could get a squadron. Then April went back to the anomaly, and it turned out she didn't have to do all the missions like you had to do in the beginning. So if you waited to do the expedition, you saved yourself a lot of time. The next thing that happened is kind of a learning experience for everybody. I'm so mad about it, but it was my fault. When I went back into my main save with AprilPvd so that she could make that copy of the ship for before she gave it to April, I decided I wanted to go log into Sebastian's save now that he's in the regular state while on the flat screen, and then have AprilPvd go visit her home and see if they were really near each other. It's interesting because I like testing the dynamics of a game. And so when Sebastian had his home, he's in the expedition. When AprilPvd used the coordinates and went to the same planet, she was on her main save, and then she made a base. And so I wanted to go see the base and see if I could see Sebastian's home, to check out the dynamics. So I teleported to the home from the anomaly, and when I got to the planet that Captain Steve made on my ship, I went to head to where I thought Sebastian was, and I immediately was attacked and killed because for some reason the settings had reset and PvP was now back on. So just every once in a while, check your settings to make sure that you have PvP turned off. I was killed. The only thing that makes me feel really good about it was that the person didn't get much of a fight. I didn't even have a chance to attack him back. Uh, and I was in multiplayer at the time. I had joined a Sebastian save. So when went to restore, it didn't work the first time. I had to actually leave multiplayer, come back, and then use my restore, and I was back at the anomaly. But yeah, just make sure that you turn off. Check every once in a while that your PvP settings are off. They say that's the answer to the griefers. Just make sure you turn off your PvP, but a lot of times it turns on whether you know it's on or not. So anyways, it's a good thing I could restore. So I went back and I saw the house and I saw Sebastian, and it was nice to know that we're on the same planet, Captain Steve's planet, and that worked out very well. Then I logged in. I logged AprilPvd back into the expedition, and then I got back on April, and I went to my home and had April join me on that planet so that she could build a base and so that we could all have bases. So then we went, April and AprilPvd went to April's freighter because AprilPvd wanted to give her a whole bunch of stuff. So April did make a storage place so that she could take some of the stuff from AprilPvd. And that was, I just wanted to her to have all the stuff that she got from the anomaly. And then after she put all the stuff that she could into April storage, AprilPvd went back to the anomaly, closed out the expedition. I ended up having to turn off multiplayer because the people were standing in front of the console blocking my view. I have to remember to turn it back on. And then AprilPvd went back to her main save. Now, April went on to do the rest of the milestones up to countermeasure. And this was interesting because she only had to do one striker, one sabotage, and one restore. And then she immediately got the final countermeasure milestone. So if you waited to do the expedition, you could just go in now and tunnel your way through it. I mean, it was still fun. I'm glad I got to do it from the beginning. So it was still fun. But it's nice to know that you don't have to go through the whole waiting around. You just do the first 3 missions and then you get the lens. And that's when I logged off on April. So when I log in today, she's going to do the hive battle and everything. And then I'm going to close out on my other characters. This was a really fun expedition, and I've really enjoyed doing it. And I hope you've enjoyed hearing me talk about it. I love pushing the limits of this game. No Man's Sky is wonderful. I love the fact that I can do my Altaholic thing and I can go back and forth between my 2 characters, and I'm having a ball. The show notes, you can see the pictures. If you're listening to the podcast, you can see the pictures in the show notes at CtrlAltWow.com, which forwards from CtrlAltWow.blogspot.com. And there is a video, and I'll put a link to it in the show notes. You can write me at CtrlAltWow@gmail.com. I had some other stuff I wanted to talk about VR and stuff, but I think I've gone on enough for today. And also, I want to talk about living single, sober, and small. Life can be good. Check back with my next episode, which I think will be next week, and I'm going to talk about some of the ways that I manage my retirement and how much I'm having fun being AprilPvd. Thanks for listening.
Technology recharge.